Hi, good afternoon. My name's Muttiah from Career Interactive. Thanks very much for joining us today. And also thank you for, we have been absolutely inundated with emails, calls, basically around Tier 2 and Tier 4. What I'm going to take the time to do today is really to explain to you all of the changes that are going on. I have to say this level of changes is absolutely unprecedented. We have never seen anything like this, certainly in the 7 years that we have been in operation. So what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to try and go through very comprehensively with you about the July restricted certificate of sponsorship numbers, the changes happening to Tier 2. I'm going to make a recap of that. I'm really going to expand on some of the points that I spoke about 2 weeks ago. And I'm also going to be talking about the changes that have happened to Tier 4. I know that I've had a lot of people asking me about this and also phoning into the company. So I hope that I can really shed some light on it and give you some very clear explanation. As there seems to have been some confusion, certainly over the course of this week, the changes actually only came out on Monday. They do not immediately come into effect. They're coming to effect from between September to October of this year. So let's go straight into the slideshow. I'm going to be taking all the questions at the end. I've got a lot of material to get through. So as you have the questions, I'll try and answer them as and when they come up, basically, but only at the end of the slideshow. Yeah. So moving on. So I really want to make this as clear and easy to understand as possible, as I know that there has been a lot of confusion about it. We're going to talk about what your options are. I'm going to explain to you restricted certificate of sponsorship. I'm also going to talk about the July numbers, how Tier 2 is changing, more specifically the changes to salary requirements, as that's what's going to come into effect this year, who is MAC, and also how has Tier 4 changed. So first of all, I want to talk to you about your options. I have to be very clear about this. So there are two scenarios for applying for Tier 2. The first scenario is you apply within the UK. This is absolutely your best option. This is currently not affected by any of the changes going on. So this only applies if you have a certificate from a UK higher education institution. I'm going to explain this. What that means is, say for example, you're currently doing a Master's at Imperial and you had a Bachelor's from UCL. You have your Bachelor's certificate. That means you can apply for a Tier 2 within this country. Even if I have not advised you around this, the immigration team will advise you to do this. Under no circumstances, you may have the choice. Do not leave the country. If you leave the country, you will be applying for a restricted certificate of sponsorship. The success rate for this is basically 100%. Okay? The second scenario, this is restricted certificate of sponsorship, where you apply outside of the UK. So you need to go for the residential labour market test. However, if you're a graduate, you will pass this. This is where all of the controversy has come about. Annual limit of 20,700. That equates to 1,725 monthly. And in June, as many of you know, this monthly target was the first time it was hit since 2011. Some people were rejected. Some were rejected this month as well. I'm going to be talking about that. So, restricted certificate of sponsorship is for applications out of country for wages below £155,300. This is also if you do not have a certificate from a UK higher education institution. This also includes Tier 4 dependents, i.e. your spouse, and there is a hierarchy to who receives a Tier 2 general restricted certificate of sponsorship first. So the hierarchy is, I've explained this before, Croatians go first, then special groups, sole, PhD roles, then salaries from 155,299 to 46, then from 45,999 to 32, and after that from 31,999 to 20,800. As you know, or as many of you know, in June the number set was at 50, which meant you had to earn 46,000 and above. This month it's been set at 45, which is 32,000 and above. I'm going to come to this a little bit later, but I have to say at the moment I feel that this is encouraging news. So how do I work out my points? Really very simple. You will all pass the residential labour market test with 30 points because you are new entrants to the market. If you are studying in the UK and you have graduated, you're counted as a new entrant under the residential labour market test. Your points are then worked out in terms of your salary, i.e. if you're earning 28,000 to 31,999, you would then get 40 points. If you're doing a PhD level posting, that also comes under RLMT, that's 50. If you're on Sol, that's 75. So for many of you, you won't apply for either of these. For Sol, it's basically an instant free pass. So what happened in July? I just want to go through these. So we had 1,650 allocated. A balance was carried over from June of 394. So that gives us 2,040 plus or minus 4, as you've got some numbers coming and going. So what's happened is minimum points 45. So we had 1,943, 1,934 passed. So everybody passed who earned 32,000 and above. I'm going to speak about this a little bit later because there has been some confusion about how you come to the sum of 32,000 a year. I'll go through this with you. A balance of certificate has been carried over of 97. Why is this good news? Quite simply, what it means is that we're working for a backlog. So what happens is every month it is done on a sort of singular basis. So you have 45, you have 50 points, then you have 45, then you have 40, and so on and so forth. But what happens is the most reassuring thing is that the points are not the same. If we had 50 and 50 again, I'd be quite worried. The fact that the points have gone down means that we are working for a backlog. If you imagine we have, say for example, we had 500 applications for 32 to 46. What it meant was all of those applications were rejected. The Home Office views all of these as the same. It makes no differentiation between them. Now what's happened is all these applications have now been processed. So now we're going to move on to the 40 to 45 band and see if we can clear that, then the 38 to 40 and so on and so forth. If you are on the lowest wages, is there cause for concern? Yes, of course there is. But what it means is we're getting closer to the level which most graduates are at. Certainly for our clients, they mostly tend to start on wages of 24 to 26,000 and above. So you're getting pretty close on the points mark. I'm going to give some indicative kind of opinions slightly later on. But for me, it's good news. If that number had been in excess of 100, I would have been slightly worried. So what happened? 50 to 45, 46,000 to 32. So as stated before, the Home Office have stated in the interest of fairness, if the limits is exceeded, they will reject all applicants. So i.e. if they could not give everybody with 45 to 50 points a visa, they'd give no one a visa. Yeah. 97 plus applicants have been rolled over to August. Why is it 97 plus? We know it is a minimum of 97, but the Home Office does not publicly release the numbers of rejected applications. So we can only deal with the facts. I know a significant number of people who have been rejected. I also know quite a few people who were rejected in June and have now been accepted in July. The next decision will be made on the 11th of August. So what now? So first of all, I'm going to go through quite a few things that I've heard and have been filtered back to me. Some companies have rejected applicants, unfortunately, KPMG and Ernst & Young being some of them. Others have deferred candidates until April and September, i.e. they're waiting for the numbers to come down so they know that that person will be processed. Other candidates will roll over applicants one last time. The reason being, if anybody watching here is starting in September, it's important to recognise that these companies want you to start. They cannot replace you, not now. It's just too short a time frame. So they're going to give it one last go and roll you over. Also, what you'll find is if you're earning, say, for me, I would reckon 28 and above, they may bump you up just to be safe. I mean, wages and bonus are raised. So here, as I said before, Total earnings includes fixed bonuses but not pension contributions from your company, as that was a question that was raised to me. You can see the specifics in the Tier 2 guidance. It makes it very explicit. In terms of the working hours as well, they go on a 38-hour week and then they pro-rata it against that. So we are confident that the backlog is being dropped, is being worked through, and the small rollover rate means that we will get to graduates with pay below 32,000 in August applications. The reason being is that the vast bulk of applications will have been done in May to then be processed in June when we went over the top. There's not going to be a lot of new applications coming through. So I feel as with historically, if you look back through the numbers to 2011, at this time of the year, there tends to be a bit of give in terms of the amount of applications that are rolled over. There are, of course, no guarantees, but I would say logic dictates that it is getting better. So there is no way of knowing, and you have to remember historically there's only been a 60 to 70% take-up rate of RCos numbers over a 4-year period. So generally you do have a margin of error within that. And also, in terms of good news, this is a reflection of the strengthening UK economy. Simply what it means is more people want you, more visas are needed. We've run over the top of it. That's why we've seen that, because there are more people employed in the UK right now than since records began in 1971, according to the Office of National Statistics. So it really is a boom time at the moment, and unfortunately that has some side effects and consequences. So just looking at the cap, as you can see, that's the numbers we're looking at August. So we're looking at a 1747. And as you can see, just going back for those years' numbers, you can see 735 getting rolled over in January, 640 getting rolled over in April. And April, that wasn't because they exceeded the cap. So it's very important to recognise that the Tier 2 numbers were designed to have quite a bit of give within them. Yeah. So for me, it is encouraging. So how is Tier 2 changing? There's a few things here. Salary thresholds are changing. This guidance will be released on the 21st of July, which is going to be before the House rises to go away for summer holidays on the 24th of July. These will only come into effect in mid-October. We have already submitted evidence on your behalf. We submitted a substantial document outlining certain facts and findings. One of those that we believe that there should be regional pay differentiations, and also the damage that it would do to certain sectors in terms of raising the pay threshold. There will be a wider review of Tier 2 by mid-September, and what you have to remember is there is a negative lean towards what MAC has been asked to do. They're looking at ways to reduce the cap, which is not reassuring, but they're not going to change it overnight. The earliest changes will be mid-October 2015. The changes, the review in terms of December, the changes will come through in April of 2016. Yeah, so we've still got at least 9 months. So what's happening with the Tier 2 salary thresholds, also known as Little Mac? So this is essentially already a done deal. It's going to happen. New entrants graduates will rise from 10th to the 25th. However, experience, that's still what is uncertain, whether these will rise from the 25th to the 50th percentile. We have indicated a rise any more above the 40th percentile is unrealistic, because otherwise you're looking at a pay bump of over £50,000 in 3 years, which, to be frankly honest, outside of IB and law just isn't going to happen. The most that you can expect for an auditing role, for example, is about £20,000 over 3 years, which is still significant. But you know, there's that sense of realism that has to go along with that. And the reassuring thing was that MAC seemed to agree with us and many other companies in terms of that being unrealistic. There's also so 20,800 is going to go up. We estimate this to be going up on average across different industries to about 24 to 24,500, and also for intra-company transfer, which doesn't affect you. That's transfers between the same company from somebody, say an IT engineer in India transferring to the UK. So just to give you an example about new entrants, so civils going from 21 to 28, IT from 20 to 27, chartered accountants 20 to 24, and business professionals 20 to 27. As spoken about before, this isn't really going to affect you because large companies already kind of pay this sort of money. So it's not too bad really. That 20,500 is really going to affect smaller companies. But the companies who do the bulk of graduate hiring, it will not affect them. They already pay in that sort of region anyway outside of London. So who is MAC? MAC is a non-departmental public body set up in 2007. They provide evidence-based advice to the government. They are a full panel of immigration experts and economists. Sir David Metcalf is actually the Emeritus Economics Professor at LSE. They've previously advised on Tier 1 and 2. The important thing to remember, unfortunately, about MAC is that they advise, but they do not specifically have any impact on legislation that comes out. They have previously advised against the government's actions, and the government has superseded their advice. So what we have to remember is, regardless of what MAC say, it's still down to the government, and unfortunately people like Theresa May. So what's the wider review all about? Quite a few things really important about whether dependents of Tier 2s will be allowed to enter and work in the UK. Quite relevant for some of you who maybe you're here but your partner is abroad, or you're here and you want your partner to stay with you. These provisions may potentially change. Intra-company transfer provisions are going to be changed. To give you some idea, intra-company transfer account for about 55,000 Tier 2 visas a year, which is significantly more than Tier 2 general. There's also going to be an immigration house surcharge. I would expect this to be somewhere in the region of what you already pay, so no more than £150 to £250. There's a look at charging big businesses a skills levy. Again, that does not affect you directly, but it may affect whether companies choose to hire non-EEA graduates. So, Tier 4 Change this week. There's been a lot of conversations about this. A lot of immigration firms have already released their sort of interpretation. I want to explain a few things because there does seem to be a significant amount of confusion around this. So, all colleges, public or private, public college students can work 10 hours. This is no longer the case. They are talking about further education colleges, i.e. where you are studying A-levels or national qualification degrees and you are between the ages of 16 to 19 years old. This does not affect you. So for college students wishing to change, so college students, if you're doing ACCA, CIMA, CFA, this is going to come into effect in October and is going to affect you. Previously, what has happened, and this is something that we've done ourselves, we've done with many, many clients, is that when their masters comes to an end, in order to give them the opportunity to continue looking for jobs, they've extended their Tier 4 and what for many is a cheaper option than studying a second masters by applying for Tier 4 through a private education college. This is no longer going to be viable because you will not be able to apply for a Tier 2 within the country. What does that mean? You can study for a CFA, but once you're done, you have to go home. So you can study for a CFA, get a job offer here, but you still have to go home. What does that mean? It means you have to apply for a restricted certificate of sponsorship. You will no longer be able to apply for an unrestricted certificate of sponsorship. How is that going to affect you? Well, it is going to reduce your chance of getting a Tier 2. The government has said that this is all about closing a loophole. As far as we're concerned, this is completely ridiculous because the level of regulation that highly trusted sponsors need to go through is very high. There isn't a lot of backdoor behaviour going on, and there is already 870 private colleges that have been closed within the last 4 years. The majority have gone. There are very few highly trusted sponsors left in London at all. So we feel that this is just another way to get international students to leave, and we are very disheartened by this. But there are other methods to look at this problem that we are currently strategizing. The other thing that's changing is about university students. So this is going to affect people who want to study a second master's. It may also affect people who are applying for a master's starting from next year. These changes come into effect from August, so basically from next month. So if you've already got your master's place, it's not going to affect you. What this means is really it's down to the universities themselves. They have to demonstrate that the master's course that you're studying is related to your bachelor's degree, or your second master's is a specialism and is necessary for your to study from your first master's. So what you're having to look at is it's really down to the universities. Now, we have already heard from legal representatives from some of the top universities. They will be lobbying against this because they believe it is unfair. There will be credibility interviews. What this means is that universities, it really depends on how they sell the masters. So could you have done a bachelor's in economics and go and do a marketing master's? It's going to be difficult. It depends how the universities spin it. Also, the other thing is college students will be banned from extending Tier 4 visas in the UK unless they're studying at an embedded college which is recognised by the Home Office. So in London, who does this include? This would be Bangor, Liverpool, Sunderland, Warwick, Coventry, UEA and Anglia Ruskin. This is going to come into effect from November. So again, what does this mean is that it's placing greater emphasis on the fact that there are only certain places where you can go and study further education and go and study your masters. What is unclear is how the universities have yet to respond to this. This is certainly going to affect some universities. What I would say is, for those of you, as I said, it's not explicitly going to affect you now. However, if you're going to be looking at doing a master's in, say, a year's time, or you're looking to do a private education Tier 4 course, then maybe you should have a second think about that. What I would say is you must contact your education provider who can give you the relevant advice. We, of course, can only give our opinion. We cannot give immigration advice on individual cases. The only people who we really do that with is our own clients, I'm afraid. So there's a couple of other things. So this is another thing. Ban college students from being able to switch visas to Tier 2s or 5 in the UK and require them to apply from outside the UK. Again, that's private colleges. That is not universities. Time limit for study at further education levels reduced from 3 to 2 years. Already there's a 5-year maximum limit, to be frankly honest. This isn't a massive change. Remember, this does not apply to universities. This is to private education colleges or publicly funded colleges. So unfortunately, it's bad news for institutions like the London School of Business and Finance and other such institutions, but not if your university is a recognised HEI, higher education institution. So, how can you help? What can you do? You must speak out. This is so important. We're going to be having a meeting with PwC and British Future on the 23rd, and also a further meeting with a number at an immigration club with a number of FTSE 100 companies organised by PwC on the 24th. Tell us your thoughts. Send an email to HR@Career Interactive entitled to Tier 2 about how this is affecting you, your friends and your family. Please remember, no one is going to listen if you do not speak. This is the chance for you to make your voice heard. So there's no point. I've seen a lot of chatter on different forums and so on and so forth. So I must encourage you to speak out. Please send an email to us. Pass this on to your friends. Get involved. Get involved with the conversation. International students bring in £12 billion a year to the UK economy. You are incredibly important. So for you to speak out will be very relevant to what's going on this year. Also, who are we? We are the UK's #1 career coaching consulting company. We've spoken to 35,000 students over 6 years, place an average of 2 clients in top jobs. We place clients into Times Top 100 companies. We are the only company in the UK to have an offer guarantee program. I just want to talk to you quickly about something now, something I'm really excited about. CIUK has gone Dutch. We're going to Holland to open a new program. What does this mean? It means if you are now doing a master's or a PhD at the following universities, say for example you are considering doing a private education tier 4 and now all of a sudden you think that might not be off the cards because you won't look for a job, there are some fantastic opportunities in Holland. As a team, we've been working on this for 4 months. We anticipated this would happen, so we're really glad that we had this package available. You must have done a master's in the following universities, that is Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, UCL, LSE, Edinburgh, King's College London, Manchester, Bristol, Durham, Glasgow, Warwick, QMUL, St Andrews, Sussex, York, Royal Holloway, London, Sheffield, Lancaster, Southampton, Leeds, Birmingham, Exeter, Liverpool, Nottingham, Aberdeen, East Anglia and Leicester. Unfortunately, your university must be in the Times top 200 global institutions. If they're not, then you cannot apply for this package. We are going to give you the opportunity for apply some massive companies like Royal Dutch Shell, ABN AMRO, Unilever, Huawei, Aegon, Rabobank and many more. This will also mean that you'll get a post-study work visa in Holland, CIUK, which will last for 12 months, give you the right to look for work and to work in the Netherlands. This is a fantastic opportunity. I cannot tell you how disheartened we are at the changes of fortunes of international students who we already feel are being unfairly picked on anyway. But we have to provide you with additional options, and we feel that this is a really viable option. So if you'd like to know more about this, please send your CV to HR Career Interactive with the header Going Dutch, or log into our platform and go to our store. Remember, you must be a master's or a PhD student in the following universities, otherwise your application will be unsuccessful. So just finally, if you'd like to know any more about us for a free consultation or one of our packages, please send your CV to HR Career Interactive with the title Yes Please. If you want your voice to be heard by the UK government and MAC, you can email voice to HR Career Interactive and to fill in our survey. We are here to help you be heard. We are here to give you the most relevant information in an easy to understand language. I cannot thank all those who have shown their appreciation for what we do on a daily basis. It is our absolute pleasure, and we are so proud to be here and to represent you, as we know that you are the future of the British and even the global economy. Thank you very much for your patience. I'm now going to have a look at the questions and try to answer them in order. If you do have some questions, please just type them into the chat bar and I'll try to answer them if I can. Thank you. Okay, so King Jassim, as I said, please send a CV through to HR at Career Interactive entitled Going Dutch. Cynthia Peters, how much does EY pay? That's a very general question. It really depends on the role. You'd have to be more specific. I thought Mr. Chung, so minimum salary requirement is tier 2 is 20,800. Yes, it is. However, with a salary of 20,800, you would have only gained 32 points for restricted certificate of sponsorship. So actually, to have got a restricted costs this month, you would have needed a salary of £32,000. That's 30 points for RLMT and 15 points for a salary of £32,000. Just because you have the minimum salary doesn't necessarily mean that you will get sponsored. It is just one of the requirements of sponsorship. Thai, your student visa will expire 14th of August, but my job starts in August. does this mean my application will fail into RCos? No, it doesn't, Ty. What happens is they'll probably do a last application. You'd have to confer with your employer, I'm afraid. I wouldn't be able to comment on your individual situation. So, for example, your employer may be applying one last time. Once you have that cost, it's a bridge. Once you have that cost, you can stay here. It doesn't matter that there's a 3-month gap. So I would have thought they're going to be reapplying again for you. That depends. You'll have to speak to your employer. So Jonathan, a university master's student can still move from a tier 4 to a tier 2 after receiving the degree with an offer of an employment, even after November. Yeah, I mean, of course you can. However, it doesn't leave a lot of time. You're generally going to get your certificate November, December, and your visa is going to run out in January. That's why a lot of master's students then go on and do a CFA or an ACCA 12-month course, because it gives them an additional 12 months breathing space. What's going to happen is that option will no longer be open to you, because if you get a tier 2, you get a job offer in a tier 2, you'll have to leave the country. So essentially you've got the same problem. For students like yourself, that's why we've introduced the Dutch program, because we believe that it's a viable option. It's either that or going to study a second master's, which you may or may not be able to do. And also it's very expensive. To do a second master's, even a cheap one, is going to cost you about £7,000. So that's something for you to look into. If you do want some consultation or some advice, I suggest you send through your CV. Right, so Ty, do I need a £32,000? Well, that is yet to be seen. So, for example, in June you needed a £46,000 salary. In July it was £32,000. Hopefully the points will continue to come down, so then it will return to normal levels. What I'm saying is, I believe that we have had an unprecedented level of applications for Tier 2. The backlog is now being worked through. I would suspect you will need a salary in excess of 20,800 even for August. I cannot quantify a number, but I believe it will be somewhere in the region of 24 to 26,000 pounds, as that is the bulk of graduate jobs start at about 24,000 pounds. There's not a lot of jobs out there starting at 20,800. The number is yet to be seen, because of course we don't know. Those numbers will come out on August the 11th, so that's a guessing game. So Cynthia, what is your advice to master's students who finish their studies in September? So it's not about when you finish your studies. So your dissertation will be done in September. So therefore your graduation is in December. Your visa ends in January. Please, Cynthia, please send email in your CV. As I said, it's very difficult for me to comment on individual cases without more information in front of me. So send your CV to HR Career Interactive. Yeah, Jennifer. So I'm still a bit confused. If I'm in the UK and I've graduated from the master's program in September, is there still a high success for obtaining a tier 2, or is that dependent on salary? Theoretically, by September, the numbers should revert back to normal. Your chances of success are the same as anybody else. So you've got 4 months to get a job. What we're talking about is, if you have a bachelor's from the UK, then you've got a greater chance of getting a sponsorship than if you have a bachelor's from outside of the UK, because you won't have to return to your country of residence. Therefore, the number of certificates are unrestricted. In terms of your chances, it's very difficult to qualify that. What I would say is, if you want some further advice, please email your CV to HR Career Interactive. Pranati, so if you've missed it, then unfortunately you're going to have to. Do the recent restrictions mean that there is no point in waiting here and applying for jobs until my visa expires? No, I don't think so. Certainly what I'm saying is that the situation is improving. Remember that this is an unprecedented event and we're working through it. So essentially what's happened is we're making history, because the number of applications were exceeded for the first time in 4 years in June. I don't think there is no point. I think it is getting harder, and times are unstable. But certainly we are processing clients all the time. It may be slightly more difficult, but again, it depends on your individual case. Neil, studying for an MSc at Manchester, will need to apply for Tier 2 separately, but going back to my home country if I get a job offer. Again, Neil, that depends whether your bachelor's is from the UK or not from the UK, simply put. Tim, my Tier 4 student visa ends in October and I'm still in the process of job. I want to know if it's impossible for me to secure any job at this stage. Tim, it's quite difficult to say. Again, if you want to send your CV through, the time frame is very small. The average time the minimum time to get a Tier 2 is generally 6 to 8 weeks from offer. You may want to look at ways of extending your visa. We do provide visa advice as part of our packages. If you'd like to know more about that, then send your CV through to us. Riddy, is there any realistic chance for people at 32, 33? Oh yes, regional salaries. Yeah, got it. It's difficult to say. I would say I would be very surprised if you do get a visa, if you get your costs in August, because there's still a big backlog. I think the points is going to drop from 45. I don't see it going back to 32 that quickly, if I'm being frankly honest. So it's very difficult to say. Yeah, so I couldn't really comment. All I will say is I'd be surprised. Yes, I'm studying ACCA and BPP, September 2016. I will not be able to complete all my papers. So can I apply to extend my visa without leaving the country? Yes, you'll have to speak to BPP. I don't know, is the simple answer. BPP have a sufficient legal team to be able to deal with that. They'll have to answer that question. Neil, so your bachelor's is within the country. Yes, because unless theoretically what you can do and what some companies are doing is that it depends on the company. You won't get your certificate for your master's until December. By December, when you get your certificate, you'll be able to apply for a visa in this country, but more than likely your offer will come before that. So it's very difficult to say. What I would say is we've processed a lot of master's clients over the time. They've joined in September and got a job, but we have always looked at extending our visa. As I said, this is very early days. Everybody's still reacting. We're putting strategies into place to advise new clients. If you want some advice about how you can proceed, then please send your CV through to us. Tom, I'm doing my PhD and my current Tier 4 visa expires in 2019. However, if I want to switch to a Tier 2 visa, is it possible to do it from within the UK? Tom, again, that depends if you have, very simply, if you have a certificate from a higher education institution in the UK. If you do, then yes. If you do, then no. If you don't, then no. Sorry. So, got a little bit of time. Any more questions? Neil, you're very welcome. I'm glad that I could help. So what I just want to end off with is that from everybody here at CIUK, you have our deepest sympathies. We are here to help you. We are here to be your voice. We want to hear what's happening to you, and we know how important you are to the UK economy. And it is an absolute pleasure to be of service to you all. That is the way that it should be. There is a common thought amongst many FTSE 100 companies of deep frustration that the UK government cannot seem to see that you are the future, that you are the most talented and brightest graduates in the country, and you are being penalised. So it is a very strange situation. Devanshi, yes, I've got quite a few clients over at PwC. You'll have to wait and see, I'm afraid. PwC will have to answer, all the other companies will have to answer for themselves. I couldn't possibly comment.
Thank you so much for attending. As I said, if you would like to know any more, all you have to do is send through your CV to hr@careerinteractive.org with the title Yes Please. We cannot answer individual questions about individual cases. Our visa advice is purely based around our packages, so you may find us less than forthcoming. I do try, and members of the team do try to answer as many questions as possible. As I said, we have been inundated with applications. Please join me again next Thursday at 4:30 when I'll be doing another webinar for you all on a topic of our choosing. If you have a particular topic that I would like to speak about, please feel free to send that in. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I wish you all the best of luck and have a wonderful weekend. All the best from us all here at CIUK. Thank you.